Welcome to the TC Dojo from Single Sourcing Solutions. The TC Dojo is a TechCom community that is driven by you. Tell us what you want to learn. You choose the topics, and we find the experts.
Good morning, and welcome to the TC Dojo from Single Sourcing Solutions. The TC Dojo is a TechCom community that is driven by you. Tell us what you want to learn, you choose the topics, and we find the experts. In the TC Dojo open session today, we are lucky to have John Garrison as our visiting dojo master. John is a name that most STC people already know. I've heard his name long before I ever saw him present. One year, I went to a regional STC conference in New England and finally had the pleasure to hear him speak. John is an STC Associate Fellow. Are you a fellow now also? Or no, still an Associate Fellow? It's only expected to think that he'll be a fellow. He's taught technical writing at Harvard and the University of Massachusetts Lowell. He has deep experience in writing about operating systems, programming language, business applications, health records, and many other things. Together, it gives him a unique perspective on most things documentation related. He's always enjoyed sharing information and war stories, and he's here to share some of his experience with us today. Thank you, John, for agreeing to be our TC Visiting Dojo Master.
Hello, everyone who I can't see, but yeah, I had a hard time coming up with the right title for this. And I go waffled kind of long and lasting, how to thrive in a, doesn't matter. How to have a good career as a tech writer is really what just cut to the chase. So, who am I to talk about all this stuff? Well, as Liz said, I've been doing this for a long time. Tech writer since 1974. I've had more jobs in more industries than I want to think about. Companies small and large, Hewlett Packard with tens of thousands or DEC with hundreds of thousand employees and 16, so just all of it. And just so this is not about me, this whole thing. This is about all the lessons that I've learned and the connections that have put me where I am and how I got here. And I want to convey some of that to you to help you kind of look at your careers. This is not going to really be hard tech core, tech writing stuff. It's going to be how to be a good guy. I don't know. Don't take that sexist like guy. Guy is a non-gender term. So anyway, if you want to find my full CV, it's on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find. It's there. So first of all, change is at the core of a career because since I started doing this, everything has changed. What I've documented has changed a lot. It started out with a database of, financial application stuff, and now I do clinical trials. My company is the largest purveyor of software that runs clinical trials in the world. How did I get from there to here? I don't know. I certainly didn't plan it. It just kind of happened. And that's part of the thing is you have to be aware of what you're learning and how you can apply it in different ways when opportunities present themselves. You can't plan out a real career. You kind of have to find your way with what's available at the moment. So anyway, what I've documented has changed a lot. Tools have changed. The first manual I ever wrote, I wrote out longhand on a yellow legal pad, and a technical typist entered it into a computer, right? We had screenshots where we had a little plastic template that I could draw what looked like a screen around text on the page. On paper, these were paper documents, believe that or not, because paper, Dead Tree Edition anymore, right? So, but everything's changed. The tools have changed, and everything that I used to write in almost doesn't exist anymore. Word in DOS, totally gone. The medium has changed. Everything I do now is online on a web, in a wiki. They didn't have any of these things back then. And the content has changed, I don't write the same stuff in the same way now that I used to, 30, 40, 46 years ago when I first started. So, you got to be able to manage all of this and cope with it because, the pace of change is not going to slow down. And if anything is going to happen, it's going to get even crazier than it currently is. So Well, what we do does not change. If you know, my friend Rick Lippincott says we explain things, and that's what we do. That's our job. That's our purpose. The skill that we bring is how to transfer knowledge from people that have it to people who need it. That is essentially, that's the base of what we do. We interview people and we present it to others. All right. Our core competencies don't change. I understand Tom Martin, if you're in the audience, you should recognize this. I got an email from Tom today. He took one of my classes at UMass Lowell 30 years ago, and he was telling me how he's been a tech writer ever since, which, you know, I got to say, there's nothing that makes you feel better as a teacher than to know that you really made a difference in somebody's life. So, but what we do is conceptualize, get the idea, investigate it, find out everything we can about it, assimilate it, own it in our heads, then figure out how to organize it so you can present it to somebody else, and then you just regurgitate all the stuff that you've learned. That's what we do. You know, the tools we use are different, the stuff is different, but the skill set that we have at our core does not change. We still do all of these things. The challenge with it is to keep finding and adapting to all the new and better ways to do it. You know, like I said, when I first started, handwriting, you know, and then basically the, you know, early data entry and word processing and all the converting it to RoboHelp or to CHM help, you know, all of that stuff. You know, everything I used to know about, you know, how to manage a PC back in the early days, it's just totally gone by the board. So everything is transit. So I want to talk about a little bit about careers first. So what you start doing may not be what you always do. There is growth, there is change. There, you know, one door opens and one door closes, another one opens. So, you know, when you go into work that Monday morning and the doors are locked and there's nobody there, and you realize, they shut the company down, well, what are you going to do? You know, these kinds of things happen. You may not consider what you're currently doing your ultimate career. Well, that's perfectly fine. You know, it isn't in most cases. I don't know of very many people who will have a 30-year career at the same company doing stuff like, you know, our parents and well, you know, my parents, your grandparents did. But, you know, it's, you know, don't feel like, you know, you have blinders on, you can only do one thing. There's always going to be opportunities in different things. And one of the things that tech writing is really wonderful about is that it gives you skills and exposure to different areas in a company where you can go and take what you do and apply them there. So if you want to go into product management, you know, you can. If you want to go into you know, marketing or training, you know, where you develop course development, that sort of thing. Perfect opportunity for that. That's not tech writing. All sorts of things open to you because you have to work with all of these people, all of these different groups. You can find a place where you know, you might fit in better. Would you consider a management career? You know, all sorts of opportunities are out there. It's just you have to pick the one that is the right thing for you. So try something different. You know, take a job, you know, hey, let me try that out and, you know, and see how you like it. You can always go home again. I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. You know, I started as a rookie writer, you know, not knowing anything and doing all sorts of wonderful things, and made it up to like director and ran a company that did training, conferences all over the world. And then I worked at a hospital being a webmaster for a cancer center and working with doctors. And, you know, that got me into kind of the medical background that I kind of need to do what I do today. All sorts of things. So I've gone up the chain, and now I am an individual contributor again. And let me tell you, you couldn't make me take a management job if you had to anymore. But at the time, it was the right thing to do, and I loved it, and I learned a lot from it. But, you know, I change, my situation changes, the opportunities, you know, I live in Vermont on a dead-end dirt road and telecommute to New York City. What are my options here? a lot more than you might think, especially these days. So don't feel like you're locked down. So a little bit about jobs. Most people will change jobs 4 or 5 times in their career. I've had 14. I counted them. You know, not bad, unusual, but you know, why not? Why should you consider leaving a job? Well, for me, I get bored easily. And, you know, that may happen to you if you're dealing with the same subject matter in the same industry and the same kinds of people and problems. You know, it all, you know, where's the challenge? Where's the challenge? So, you know, you may be unhappy. And very interestingly, people tend to leave managers, not jobs, because managers can make your life hell, even if you're working in a really great company. And people tend to stay sometimes too long because of the people that they work with. So you have to be, you know, be aware of all of this. That it's very nice to be comfortable and stuff, but do you need a change? Do you know, so on. So you may be unfulfilled. And I mean, that's been a part of my job for a long time. But I got to say, the company I'm with now, we're running clinical trials. We're running more than half of the clinical trials on COVID-related things right now are running on our software. I feel very fulfilled in my job, that what I do really is making a difference. And if that's something that you miss or you need that would make your life better, do something about it. So it's okay to look around, and I've heard lots of people saying you should always be looking. Go on Indeed or Glassdoor and see what's out there. Just because you never know when that wonderful thing, oh man, that's like the perfect thing I'd love to do, pops up. I'm qualified. Let me put in a resume. You never know. If you don't go asking, you won't get. They're not going to come knocking on your door. You have to kind of go out and get it. So let's go on. So let's, you know, I've been told that you have to have some sort of a cartoon and a presentation these days. So here's a cartoon on exactly what not to do. I'm going to let Dilbert speak for himself here, but this is one of my favorite Dilberts I've ever seen. I just absolutely love it. Yeah. So you're all quick readers. Moving along. Step 6, claim credit for the work of the competent people. Don't do that. So if that's what you don't do, what do you do? And you do your job. You have to be really, really good at all facets of your job. If you want to move up, if you want to be taken seriously, want to be considered for new opportunities, you want to have a good reputation, people speaking well of you and your work ethic. So be really, really, really good at what you do. Learn as much as you can, about as much as possible. And I can't stress this enough. I mean, I've been in the job I am now longer than I've been in any one job in my entire career, 8.5 years. It'll be 9 years in November. I've never had one even, 5 years was the longest before that. And part of the reason why I'm here is I'm learning so much, not only about the technical stuff that I'm dealing with, but also we went from FrameMaker and RoboHelp to Confluence and wikis, and now we're really leveraging the information that we get from our users through our wikis. So it's a great opportunity to learn about this. And when we were making the change, I raised my hand. I want to be in the team that is looking at how are we going to get from old to new. And I can't stress enough that volunteering is about the most important thing that you can do to expand your career options and job options. Just find out, get on, raise your hand, volunteer to do stuff. And then it's also important really to share it, mentor people. If you're hiring people, be on the onboarding team. Teach, I got to teach at Harvard University Extension School for 5 years, simply because somebody I worked with wanted to take a tech writing course and they didn't have one. And so I volunteered. I put, hey, I'll enter, who do I talk to? I put in a course suggestion and I taught for 5 years. Who knew that you could do that? Well, if you don't ask, you won't get. But teach, mentor, onboard, volunteer, coach, help other people. Nothing will make your street cred better where you work than if you're working with other people and helping them. You also, when things don't work great, that's when you learn the most. So I won't say don't go out there intentionally to fail, but if you fail, learn from it. Why, how, how did we deal with it? What can we do better? Wonderful opportunities for that. And also, documentation that only documents the happy path is not really good documentation. You need to know, hey, when something goes wrong, and here's some of the things that may commonly go wrong, here's what you do with them. That's good documentation. So keep that in mind. And again, try as many things as you can. Volunteer. My company right now, we just got bought recently, and we have to adapt to some of the things that the new company wants us to use. So Acrolinx, I've never used it. I'm on the team that's looking at Acrolinx. We also are being told that we have to use Pendo, which I don't know, it's like an overlay for for the application layer. Other people are doing that one, but Acrolinx to me, that sounds like a really important one. So I wanted to be on that because I wanted to be the one who's learning it first and the one who's going to be teaching it to the rest of my team. Really good cred happens to people who do this sort of thing. And also I'm always looking ahead. The more you keep track of the trends, what's going on today, what's working, what isn't, where are things going? That's where the path is going to be to jobs next year, 2 or 3 years from now. So be aware of that. Get your spidey sense going to kind of understand what's happening. The other thing about what do you do? Be somebody that people want to work with. That may be the best possible thing that you can have is that, oh yeah, I had a great time working with this guy. He knew what he was doing. He, all of the good things, and that's how you get along. So get along with everybody, coworkers, not just the tech writing team, also all of the developers and everyone else. Especially with, I got to say right now, if you're not the best buddy of your quality assurance team, you should be, because they're dealing with the same thing you are, and they can help you more than you can imagine. Need access to a testing environment? They got one. Not only that, they've got data. You can use their data to help you. So come on, get out there, build those alliances. It's a very powerful thing to have in your quiver of credentials. Give credit where credit is due. Do not ever take credit for somebody else's work. That is a killer. It will kill your credibility because people will find out. I can't hide that sort of stuff. Instead, what you do is say, hey, I worked with Liz, and Liz came up with this really excellent idea. So Liz, why don't you tell them about your idea? You do that sort of thing, people will love working with you because they know that they can be open and honest and nothing bad is going to happen. You're not going to get their idea stolen. Somebody else is not going to take the credit for it. They're going to get it, and they will love to work with you as a result of that. Communicate. Everybody, tell everybody, make sure everybody knows what's going on, especially these days where my entire company is now geographically distributed. So it's really hard sometimes to over-communicate. So just to make sure that people are on the same wavelength at the same time, up to date on everything, do those little things that make that happen. And when you make a mistake, not if, when, own up to it. Go back to that learn from failure. You can learn from your failure just as much as a group failure kind of thing. But so what? It's not the end of the world. And you will learn, and you won't make the mistake. The real thing is for making mistakes is don't make the same mistake twice. Learn from it, and it makes you a better and more valuable employee. Make worthwhile investment sacrifices. When I first started with my company, I spent a lot of time in New York City. As a matter of fact, I rented a room in an apartment for 4 or 5 months so I could be down there in the office more to build alliances, to get to know the people that I worked with, to get to know the policies, the procedures, and so on. Invaluable. I paid for it, but let me tell you, 8.5 years later, I'm still there, and the stock has gone up 400%. So that's not bad either. Don't burn any bridges. Don't trash anybody. You don't understand their situation. And it's easier just to not say anything than it is to do something that could come back and bite you. Because you never know when, 5 years from now, you go to apply for a job and here's somebody that you worked with before who's on the hiring committee. You want to have them to have nice memories of you if you want to get ahead. And this is another one of those lessons that I learned. Keep confidences. When somebody tells you something, even if they don't say, hey, don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody. Because you never know, it's their thing to tell, let them do it. It's a kind of a way of taking credit for sometimes for things. But really, be somebody that they can trust, that people can open up to and tell you things, and it won't come back to bite them. That's the people that you want to work with. Don't take things personally. Develop a thick skin. Just let a lot of it roll off your back. It's a lot less, more stress-free to do it that way too. I'll tell you. So, and be you. And hopefully you are a positive and upbeat person who has a good attitude. I always, somebody always in hiring situations, hire for attitude and then train for excellence. I would rather have somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, but is open and willing to learn than somebody who thinks they know it all. Always better to have somebody who has that positive attitude. You got to believe in yourself and be confident, but not arrogant. So if you feel strongly about something and you're in a meeting with your development team and you think, if we did this, it's not going to be good for the users, say something about it. Because if you don't, it's going to happen. You're the user advocate during the development, in the development side of things. You got to advocate for the users. Keep in mind, what they're doing in a program is they're creating the hoops that everybody has to jump through to get something done. So your job is to make sure that those hoops are as big around as possible and as low to the ground as possible so that they are easy to jump through. That's part of our role. Learn to ask good questions. But even more important is listen to the answers that you get. It's very easy to think, well, I know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask them. They're saying what I want, so yeah, they're right. Don't close off the people who don't necessarily agree with everything you say, because that's how you learn. If all you do is talk to people who are in the same, coming from the same place you are, you're not going to learn anything. You're only going to learn when you have these kind of, well, let's clarify that, and what do you really mean, and let's dig into this a little differently. That's where the learning happens. A little self-deprecation and humor goes a long way, and anyone who knows me knows, that's me in a sentence. But it doesn't mean that I'm not serious. It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. It doesn't mean that I don't take things seriously. It just means that, I don't take myself too seriously. And that's a big thing. You don't want to come across as stilted or stuck up or, be a human being. There's a, I don't want to say this. Don't be be a good person. I can't say that on television. Come back and bite me. So, the biggest thing is too, as you go through your career, your life, learn the things, find out what you really like to do in each experience. There's always something. It's got to be something that's keeping you there. Find out what that is. Find out also the things that you don't like. Like I realized early on, when I started onboarding people and mentoring people, I like teaching. When I got the chance to teach at Harvard and at UMass, I loved teaching, and it's always been a part of what I do ever since. Why I'm here today doing this. I love teaching. I feel I have something worthwhile to say to people. That confident thing. But I hope I don't come across as arrogant. I don't think I do. But feedback. I want feedback. So, and also, if you're interviewing for a job, interview them as much or more than they interview you. Finding the right job is infinitely better than just getting any job. Right? And be yourself in those interviews. Show them who you are, not who you think they want to see. Nothing worse than putting on a fake persona, telling them what they want to hear, and then getting the job. And then you've got to live up to that persona because that's who they think they hired. I can tell you, I am who you see here now is who you would see in a job interview. And honestly, it's the best thing possible. There are a lot of jobs, a lot of places where you won't get hired, but I'll tell you, those are the places you don't want to be hired. If I come in and I'm, kind of upbeat and positive and all of this sort of stuff, which I am, take it or leave it, but that's who they're getting. And they're happy with it because that's who they hired. That's what they thought they were going to get. Take that, be you. So now take a self-inventory. Here, this is your homework, okay? Find out what you've already learned. And then how does this prepare you for your next big thing? Next opportunity that comes along. What can you take from your past and use to apply? For me, I have a dozen things and things that I did where, for example, boss one time asked me, how do you do what you do? So I wrote up this thing that became documentary time about what a tech writer does and how you do it, that conceptualize, investigate, so on thing. So as soon as I did that, well, not as soon, but basically I got laid off, which because we can now we know what to do your thing. So I took that was what I presented to Harvard as, hey, this is what a tech writer does. So here's a whole curriculum on how to be a tech writer. Wonderful. Did I plan that? No. Did it happen? Yeah. So you take something every time you learn something, there's somewhere else that you can put it to good use. So be open and aware of that sort of thing. So how do you see your future changing? Are you happy? Is your company going to survive the COVID 2020 debacle? What are you doing about that? You sitting back, hope, fingers crossed, that you're not going to get laid off. No, start preparing as if you were, because you never know, it could happen. And just like, getting ready for the COVID thing and dealing with that, I wear a mask not to prevent me from necessarily getting sick, but I'm trying to prevent other people from getting sick. Just like I hope that they're wearing their mask so that I don't get sick. Now, be a little upfront and prepare and get ready for what else is coming down. How do you see our profession changing? I mean, the tech writing profession of 2020 is nothing like the tech writing profession of 1975. Let me tell you, it is not. Everything is different. So it is going to change. You need to figure out how you're going to change along with it. And looking ahead, try and find some of these future-looking things people are doing, and see how you can absorb that and become and start thinking along those lines yourself. And how do you see the world changing? I mean, I never would have thought that a lot of companies are having everybody is working from home. My company, not only is everybody working from home, but we are as productive, if not more, than we were before. We had a town meeting not long ago, and our CEOs are telling us, you guys are doing a great job. You're doing so great a job that, we're ahead of where we thought we would be. And, why is that? Well, maybe because not everybody is spending 2.5 hours commuting into and out of New York for a lot of people. And they're, able to do that. It's there is change. The world is changing. How we work is changing. I can already see that it's not going to be going back to the office as usual. My company, before COVID stuff, 25 to 30% of our company was 100% remote. I see that it's going to be 60%. That's my guess. That's what we'll pop out at. And, maybe it'll be more, people will have more, well, I'll go into the office maybe 2 days, 1 day with this week, 2 days next week for this meeting, that meeting, when it makes sense to do, and so on. So there are changes happening. How is it? We don't know. Start looking, start thinking about it. If all you do is sit back and wait for it, you're not going to be prepared. So prepare yourself for all these inevitable changes. And what lessons will you learn and pass along? This is how you move forward and how you move up. Distill out what you have learned. Share it with others. Pass it along. Make yourself a better person. And thank you.
Awesome. Well done,
2 minutes over. Ding, gummit.
That's great. Okay. Excellent questions. All right, it's time for you to type in your questions. And while you do, let me tell you what's coming up.
Now it's time to type in those questions if you haven't already. And while you do, here's a look at what's coming up. The TC Dojo Mastermind Groups are monthly driven member discussion groups where attendees present their specific challenges to a group of their peers in a confidential, supportive environment. A mastermind is a collaborative environment where everyone lends their experience to each other. They can get feedback and advice about topics on their mind in real time from others who've been in their shoes. It's been amazing to participate in and a lot of fun too. We have 3 going on right now. One is everything TechCom, data, topic-based authoring, the specifics of cross-references or graphics. The other 2 are product-focused on Windchill for IT and ArborText users. These sessions are not free. They're a way to guarantee commitment between the participants. You can sign up at the TC Dojo website at mastermind.tcdojo.org. We know sometimes magic is just having the time to collaborate with someone who's been where you are.
Next month, we're going to try something new. I'm going to give the presentation I gave at STC Summit. Now, the topic is complicated and it can go a number of different ways. It's one of those sessions that brings people to me afterwards, trying to ask specific questions and get their arms wrapped around something long past the brief information in a presentation. So we're going to try something new. Go with me on this. Every STC Summit was recorded. Every presentation was recorded. So the video of this session already exists. So we're going to leverage that for the dojo. You can watch the session in advance and come to the next sessions with your questions ready to go. Because it won't be this first time you're interacting with the material. You can really dig in, we both can, we all can, and learn what it takes to apply the material to our own situations because we've already been exposed to the concepts. It's going to be a fun session and a great experiment. Like John just said, you got to try new things and see if they work and not be afraid to fail. So come next month, help us experiment and make progress on this topic so you get your own life back and still raise your profile and build your brand on your own terms. So be there or miss out. That session will not be recorded because the video already exists. All right, here's the first one. How do we research what skills and technologies will be in demand in the next 5 years? Where the trends are, who are reputable sources?
Wow. I mean, I don't know. Everybody has an opinion about these things. And I've learned that my crystal ball, fades out in about two weeks out at the most. So I don't know that I'm actually the person to ask that up. But in terms of who the thought leaders are for documentation, I would say, if you're an STC member, a lot of the more senior STC people, all the fellows and associate fellows, a lot of those people have a lot of insight. People that I follow, Ray Gallen is one. He's was way out in front on the Internet of Things thing. We haven't even begun to realize all the changes that's going to bring. So he's definitely one to follow. I don't know. Just avail yourself of all the reasons. I don't want to tell you who to follow. You have to find your own, the people who resonate with you. But there's a lot of information out there. Look up Technical Communications blog and see what you find. Google is your friend. Keep entering Google searches until you find something that interests you. And I don't know what that's going to be. But in terms of where we're going, technical changes and so on, what the technical change is and what the effects of the technical change are two very different things. And you often cannot predict how something is going to affect other things just by its existence.
Oh, good question.
Yep.
There's a lot of questions now. Here we go.
Hi, Deb.
This is great. No, it's really good. I love it when we get questions. As far as specific technical skills, what do you recommend? I've been told to learn documenting APIs or documenting code samples, learning Python. These two are essential for this future. Agree? Thoughts?
Wow. I did API stuff for a long time, SDK API documentation, and then I worked when I worked at Digital Equipment Corporation. I was doing operating systems and programming languages, system utilities, and that sort of stuff. All well and good. I learned a great deal, but honestly, it wasn't for me. I didn't. Programmers pride themselves on not having to read documentation, so I left them to their own just desserts there. And I went to start documenting for people who needed documentation. So that was for me one of those things. So I'm out of the SDK API world. There will be a lot of jobs there because more and more things are becoming automated, and they need it. Writing that sort of stuff is a challenge. It's not easy. There will be jobs that are there, and especially the more senior you get, the more money you want to make, the more benefits you want to get. It's really easy, for example, my estimation from what I see, to get a remote working job if you're working on API stuff, because you can do a lot of your research asynchronously. You can send an email to one of the developers and ask them about stuff and then read it offline, because you're probably not going to get a lot of face time with them. But you have to do a lot of your own research, a lot of your own trial and error, that sort of thing. It's a great field to be in. A lot of applications these days don't have documentation. How many mornings do you wake up and Gmail is different than it was the day before, but there's no documentation, there's no change. They just assume you will pick it up, which you do. But then there's like a lot of applications like the ones that I work on now. I mean, we do clinical trials documentation. Our users are pharma companies and medical device companies, and they, what they need is different, and it's a very interesting work. That's all I can say about it. It is an application. Our application is not something for the casual user. It's not something that you can just kind of sit down and look at the UI and figure out how to use. There are applications like that, probably don't have or don't need quite a great deal of documentation. Now, there's also internal documentation, how all the code, how the applications, the software works together, all of the kind of nitty-gritty internal stuff. And then there's stuff for end users. Yeah, and two different audiences, generally two different kinds of writers working for them. Figure out what it is that you like better and do everything you can to learn as much about it as you possibly can. So if you're in a new industry, something that you don't know what the people, the users do, learn as much about the industry as you can. It's not going to necessarily be your software, but it's what do they, it's like if I were to tell you, okay, you've got to start using a new word processor, you would probably say, oh, okay, not that big a deal. I can do that. And because you already know what to do, all you're trying to do now is figure out, how do I use this software application to do what I want done? Now, but they know the what to do thing. You don't. The more you can understand what they're trying to do, the better you can understand how to explain to use your software to do it. So industry knowledge like that is very, very important. And so if there's something that you know of, if you've had a family member who's, had some sort of a relationship or an issue in some area, and you did a lot of research and found out a lot about it, well, hey, maybe you can leverage that into something. All sorts of ways out there for things that you have learned for you to be able to put them into practice to help you find something better to do.
Good answer. All right, let's see. We've got a bunch of them. So, all right. So, for example, here's one that says, if you're trying to grow in your company and you're interested in something in particular, like UX design, but your company is not really interested in doing that, do you stay and try to help them move into that future, or do you try to go somewhere else, or how do you just make that choice?
That's a good question, and that's the kind of thing that you will encounter frequently. You know, where I like this, but is it a wise move? In the situation that you described, I would say if it were me, I would get with the UX guy for the application or applications that I work on, and talk to them about it and find out how they do what they do. Work with them as a new release is coming out or a new feature is being added. Get in with the UX guy really early. And I actually instituted a series of meetings with the UX guy and me and the product owner so that we could all agree on terminology and design and the words that go on the page before we ever gave anything to the programmers to code, because it cuts out a lot of crap, to be honest with you. They can just focus on all these things that have been thoughtfully put together. So once you get that kind of understanding and that kind of a little bit of experience in UI, UX, you may find out that, hey, this is something that I really like. And then there's an infinite number of resources out there for you to get additional training. Google Jared Spool if you want to do something on UI, UX. A friend of mine, I've known Jared for 35 years, and he is one of the foremost authorities out there, and he runs training programs and webinars and all sorts of stuff. There's so much information out there, you just have to figure out how to find it, and that's just good Google searching.
Agreed. So it's funny. I want to make sure that this staying aware and looking when you don't have to. Right. I agree that you don't know what you're going to find. And as my partner says, desperation is not an aphrodisiac. So if you're looking when you don't have to, you're a lot better off. Right. So, and sooner or later,
I like that
hurt
one.
Everyone. Right.
I like that.
I know it's a great one. She was a recruiter for a long time. Okay, so here's one. As an older writer, taking a couple of years off after being laid off, how do you suggest getting back in the field? Volunteering can help for sure.
Yeah, interesting. Little personal story here. I got the job at Metadata, like I said, almost 8.5 years ago. I was 61, and I was thinking, well, I'm going to have a hard time. Nah, I really didn't. And it's not because I knew anybody there. Well, I had, not anyone I had any real connection with, just somebody I could send my resume to. But it's, I don't know. I can't. I can't really come up with anything. It's just. Figure out what's right for you. It's a personal thing. I don't know. Didn't do that real well.
A lot of it is that it is. There's no answer. Yeah. There's just what answer is correct for you, right? And the point you are in your life and where you want to go, and that changes from moment to moment.
Yeah, and if you've had just before I went to Metadata, I had been working at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, which is close to where I live. Webmaster for the Cancer Center. And then I led a team of 19 physicians as they were implementing an electronic health record. Well, you can't get 19 doctors to agree the sun rises in the east. So getting them to agree on a common user interface is a fruitless, pointless activity to spend 2 years doing. but I did, and it was totally out of the loop. But I found a contract gig that somebody was looking for, and I did some documentation for them. And now I had, with the two jobs, I had some stuff that was medical background, and metadata is kind of in the health, life sciences, medical area. So, it made sense to try and get in there, and I did. So it's take what you know, take what you can learn, find a way to apply it. There are also a lot of volunteer activities out there. If you Google volunteer documentation, you'll find all sorts of things. Some of them, are for organizations that are well known, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but like do-gooders. Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, is always looking for these. Places that are training people in Africa are looking for tech writers for volunteer work. Do that. You get a portfolio piece, and you get to say, hey, I did good things as I'm looking to shore up my.
Yeah, Nancy Larby, also an STC fellow, started Tech Writers Without Borders. And they're always looking for volunteers, for sure.
Yes. I learned about that from Joanne up at Quebec, Lavallée. And a wonderful organization. Absolutely wonderful. She did a presentation at Interchange a few years ago. Wonderful.
It's amazing how far volunteering takes you.
I still volunteer for things. It can take you a long way. You can hard to make a living at volunteering, but using what you get from it to get a job, it's pretty easy to do.
It improves your network, your visibility. There's all kinds of things you get from it. So
your credibility goes way up when you
really
do good work and good works.
All right. I don't think we've asked all the questions, but I think we've got all the concepts that were asked. One of the only ones that I want to pull in, and it's kind of two, and it could be quick. Will AI and machine learning replace tech writers?
No.
Yeah, no.
I don't think so.
And how about, are there other related career paths for tech writers?
Well, sure. Like I said, you want to go into instructional development, instructional design, that's like, the same thing, just for different audience and different output, but very, very, very similar. And, product ownership, being a product owner is a lot like tech writing. You're much more in contact with people. So if you're a real people person, that could be a good outlet where you need to learn what people want. How can I get my product to do that, meet those goals? There are, I said, the more you expose yourself to new opportunities and new people and new things, the more things you'll get that go, ooh, oh, I like that one, and then it's just kind of picking one to follow.
Absolutely. So sorry, folks, no crystal balls, but we've got ideas, and those are better. Excellent. All right. Thank you, John. That was fantastic. What a great session. You always do well, and I'm always thrilled to have you be a part of it.
Thank you. And I recognize some names from long past positions. So, hi, guys.
Thanks for coming to the Single Sourcing Solutions TC Dojo, where it's all about you, what you want to learn. You should always attend a webinar live because you can't ask questions of a video. Subscribe to our TC Dojo mailing list at join.tcdojo.org and never miss another. Every month, we go out and find experts willing to share their expertise based on your votes in the TC Dojo survey. Why should we tell you what to learn? You should tell us. So be sure to vote at survey.tcdojo.org. The TC Dojo is our pleasure to host. As always, if you need more personal help, we're here to take you from the basics to mastery. See you next time.